So I shall declare the meeting open with the civic prayer. Almighty God, we call upon you to grant your blessings upon this council, direct and guide its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and for the true well-being of the people of our area. Amen. Now we have no apologies tonight. Moving to item 4, conflict of interest. Are there any members who wish to advise of any conflict of interest declarations? Nope. Move on to item 5, confirmation of the minutes. 5.1, minutes of the ordinary meeting held 14th of April. Got a recommendation, 5.1.1, that the minutes of the ordinary meeting be taken as read.
I can do that.
Can I get a mover? Councillor Sparks.
Councillor Sparks.
Seconded by?
Seconded.
Councillor Burdett. Can you hear me all right, Em? Yep. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. 5.2, minutes of the special council meeting held 1st of April. Recommendations 5.2.1, that the minutes of the special meeting are taken as read and signed as correct. We'll have a mover.
Moved.
Councillor Burdett, seconded. Councillor Norman, all those in favour? That's carried. 6, business adjourned. Assuming there is none. No questions, no petitions, no questions or notice. We move to item 10, mayoral elected members and general update. So you can see there the list of things that I have attended over the past month. But I did just want to make a few extra comments tonight. So firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of our elected members who've been dealing with some health challenges. So great to have Daryl back and about, and Kevin, glad to hear you're also home after a stint in town. So good to have a full deck of elected members tonight. It's been a very busy, sorry?
Daryl's a survivor.
It's good to have you both back. It's been a busy month again as we've continued to move through these unprecedented times. Zoom calls are definitely the norm, and I'm not sure about the rest of you, but yeah, getting kind of over them, to be honest. And I look forward to when we can meet again in person. But we have certainly had some really significant highlights this month, and for me, and certainly these are raised in the rest of the agenda, but I just wanted to touch on the establishment of the Youth Action Council, which was really exciting to have our first meeting of young people who are keen to get involved in driving the future direction of the community. The local stimulus project with the Your Local app, and we'll reflect on that later, but certainly that was quite significant, both in generating some really great media for our council, but also in providing a good injection of funds into local businesses and supporting our local community members as well. But most excitingly really has been the grant funding that we've received just over the past week or so, I guess, in the playground grant, the pest and weeds grant, and also the Corinda Farm Fair shed grant as well. So receiving those funds has been just a huge boost to us, and you know, it's over $1 million worth of additional dollars that have come into our community. So I really just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our staff of our council. They're a great team and they all go above and beyond, truly taking advantage of any opportunity, and that's just reflected in these additional dollars that have come in to the community. So this has all been whilst dealing with COVID and continuing to deliver their normal services as well. So to Matthew and Jared and Katrina, thank you very much for the work that you've done, and please pass that on to the rest of the team. Because we've really been kicking some big goals and have certainly been the envy of many of our neighbours, and I've been getting a lot of feedback outside of the community as well. So I'm really proud of what's been achieved for our small group, particularly in these challenging times. So having said all of that, I'm happy to take any questions on my report there. Now I've just got to find my agenda again. If anyone had any comments or questions? Nope. Hang on a moment, I've just lost my agenda now. Here it is. So if there's no questions on that, can I have someone move that council received the mayoral report 10.1.1?
So moved.
Councillor Sparks, seconded by Councillor Burdett. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. 10.2, elected members' reports. I will start with, who will I start with? Councillor Norman.
Yo, thank you, Mayor. So not a lot other than today's briefing session. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Martin.
The same, today's planning workshop.
Very good. Councillor Sparks.
Yeah, I've had one phone call with the CEO in regards to a couple of the grading issue. That was a really good phone call, and another phone call from Jared regarding weed spraying on Surrey Road, which was a productive phone call. Appreciate those two, and today's briefing session.
Thank you. Councillor Burdett.
Today's briefing session.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
The Audit Committee on the 21st of April and today's meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Zetto.
Today's briefing session, and I'll call it the 16th of April, just conferred with Jared in regards to a couple of jobs that they've been undertaking with some district road maintenance recently.
Thank you. So with that, can I have someone to move the recommendation 10.2.1 that we received the elected members' reports?
Yeah, I'll move that way.
Moved Councillor Norman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? It's carried. Okay, 10.3, general updates. I'll hand over to Matthew to talk through these.
Thank you, Mayor Phillips. So just some general updates there that have been provided by various members of the staff on various activities over the last month. So I'll take questions on those in a moment. Just the upcoming dates, just important to note that we've noted in their 9th of June Ordinary Council meeting that we'll be considering the draft strategic management plan, long-term financial asset management plan, and the draft annual business plan. As discussed in the briefing session, we'll be pushing that back now till probably the 25th of June to coincide with the Audit Committee meeting, which then will also push back the adoption of those plans or consideration of the adoption of those plans on the 14th of July by another fortnight as well. So other than that, the other dates in there are still quite relevant. COVID-19 response, again, just an update on what's been happening across the town. We're obviously changing quite rapidly, as it has done for the last 8 weeks or so, and looking now into recovery and easing of restrictions. So we were very, very active within the community with information going out and communication. And then we sort of settled into a sort of a holding pattern there once the restrictions were in place. And I think what you'll find is that over the next week, 2-3 weeks, we'll start amping up that information and communication out with the community again as restrictions start to ease. So there's a number of things that we're working through at the moment. We've got a leadership team meeting tomorrow to really go through a range of matters that were announced late last week, both at the federal level and the state level, and then interpret how that we execute that locally. So things we'll start seeing in the next couple of days are the playgrounds opening, consideration of the caravan park. We've already had just today 3 requests come through for people wanting to book sites at the caravan park. So and we did the survey last week via SMS with the business community just to get some feedback on how prepared they feel we are to reopen to regional tourism. That was 2 days before the Premier announced that tourism is back open and regional travel is a goer. So people are definitely going to be expecting to come into the region. So we just need to make sure that we as a community are prepared for that. And there'll be some more information coming out shortly. The first element of the stimulus has been quite well received as well. So that's the Your Local app that we've paired up with the local businesses. So the Karoonda Mini Mart have been using the Your Local app with some council-sponsored meals since Wednesday last week. And the Karoonda Hotel launched on Saturday night with the Your Local app. And both have had quite positive feedback based on the app and obviously the initiative as well. Interesting when you open on a Saturday night at the Karoonda Hotel and everyone in town wants to get a free food because I think within about 6 minutes they had over 21 orders and had to pause the app to stop taking orders to allow the kitchen to catch up, and then it was reopened again for about 5 minutes at about 7:18 p.m. And within that 5 minutes there was another 22 orders came through. So I think in total there was over 140 meals prepared through the app for residents of the district. So huge success, and everyone was very patient, and some people were getting their meals at 10:30 at night. So I think generally well received, good community initiative that, and certainly appreciated by both businesses as well. So we'll look to sort of continue some discussion around what other initiatives we may be able to do in the short term, and then we'll have some discussion in the budget draft budget considerations about support mechanisms in the longer term as well. We've just detailed through, we haven't done it for a while, but just detailed local media, social media, and some of the presence that we've been getting exposure through our projects and some of the work, just so you can see, I guess, the reach of the Karoonda story and the Karoonda brand. And I guess that's going to be important for us when we look to leverage visitors back into the community. So we invested heavily last year into the tourism aspect with the silo art, both painted and projected. And we've got the playground trail projects coming on board within the next few months as well. But whatever we can do to promote the brand of Karoonda and the stories of Karoonda is going to continue to make sure that people keep coming to the town and supporting our local businesses. So it is very important that we continue telling the world about the good work that we're doing up here as a community. Some other updates in there about the infrastructure and works, pest and weeds program. We've got a few tenders out. Jared's been doing some work on the roadside veg management approvals process with Native Veg. We've got the GM crops legislation, which was passed last week in state parliament. So there'll be more details coming out about that, but councils are now expected to play a part in consulting with their communities. And in effect, the legislation has it that GM crops will be permitted unless councils decide that they want to appeal and object to GM crops being permitted within their council district. So that is something that we will have some more information coming in the next month or so, and we'll have 6 months to go through a consultation process and prepare a response on behalf of our community, whether we're for or against. Mallee Kids Childcare, there's another report in the agenda around Mallee Kids Childcare and some of the implications from the funding changes under the early childhood care support package. Just a bit of an update on some of the operations that have been happening over there. And I guess the success of the school holiday period, and the fact that the centre was at capacity for pretty much every day over that holiday period and the period leading in. and we've continued to take on some of those new enrolments since that time. So there's certainly some challenges with the way the funding model's been structured in the short term, but I guess the benefit of having free childcare has certainly helped promote the use of the service and get new families exposed into that centre. And I guess the challenge for us is to continue to hold those families once normal fees do resume at this stage post June 28. So, but plenty of positive stories coming out of there. And the silo art projection. So we've continuing on with the calendar there, and I think you've just got one of the pictures. There was 2 pieces of artwork we put up for Anzac Day, one in the morning and one in the evening, and the combined reach of those 2 posts on Facebook was over 40,000 people. So very topical, very unique way for a community in lockdown to effectively celebrate and contribute to commemorating Anzac Day. So that was very well received as well. I'm happy to take questions on any of the updates.
Yeah, Matthew, or through you, Mayor, Daryl here. Just to comment on the silo projection for Anzac Day. I just had a couple of people, older residents here, who are not on Facebook and didn't know it was happening. Were told about it afterwards and said, oh, it would have been great. Well, you know, they were a bit disappointed they didn't know it was happening. So I don't know how we get that message out sooner, or how long before this happened was this planned, that we could actually get that information out earlier. So that's just a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sparks. I guess the challenging aspect of doing something on Anzac Day was that we had 2 messages, and Carol and I had a number of conversations around whether we're trying to encourage people to stay home or whether we're trying to encourage people to go out of their house at the time. So the material was prepared based around those discussions in the week prior. I think leading into Remembrance Day and other activities, we certainly know that we've got something unique that we can try at dawn. And we'll certainly promote that a lot more broadly in future. So thank you for the feedback.
Certainly in the longer term, the hope is to actually do, sorry, Matthew, in the longer term, the hope is to do a more curated, localised display in the lead up to Anzac Day. It was really a situation of timing, the COVID situation as well. And it was kind of, yeah, I guess pulled together quite quickly. But shows the flexibility of what we've got there in that infrastructure and training of staff to actually be able to do that, because I feel like we pulled it together just the week beforehand. And so, yeah, I absolutely take your point on board, Daryl, and I think that, you know, the more we can do to promote it into the future, it was just kind of a weird situation of circumstance with the COVID as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. The most of the comments I got was actually very respectful. It was just a couple of the oldies were saying, well, older residents, not oldies, older residents were just disappointed they didn't know. They might have gone and had a look. Well done anyway.
Any other questions?
Well, I did raise my hand.
Sorry.
But I don't know how that works. No,
virtually or like this?
Virtually.
Oh, I can't see that. Sorry, Yvonne.
That's okay. I was just going to ask about the GM crops, because there were some negative councils that came out against having to do this. Is this a big deal for us to do this? It's not. Like, I know neighbouring councils were a bit upset that they'd have to do such a thing. So I just wondered if you had any more info around that.
Through you, Mayor Phillips. I'm not sure it's a big deal. It's just a process, a consultation that we need to go through. I guess every council is different, and the need to then facilitate another consultation process around something that's not largely council's area of responsibility is just seen as an imposter of burden by a number of councils. So I guess for us, we're looking at the possibility of setting up some sort of an ag advisory anyway. And I guess similar to, we've instigated the YAC on the basis of the first project being the playground project. if we reinvigorate that concept of the farmers' breakfasts, this could be a good first topic for that group to have some discussion around. But I guess it's important that council will need to form an informed decision or informed viewpoint based on feedback from the community. It's just that it's a consultation process that councils weren't banking on doing this year.
Mm. Certainly the feedback that I've heard from other councils as well has not so much been about, you know, to GM or not to GM. It's been more about, pushing another responsibility back down onto local government. Happy with that response, Yvonne?
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, I mean, I get what you mean about it being state pushing onto council, but in the end, if there are pockets of areas that don't want GM, is probably council's best way to find out. So.
Well, at the end of the day, we have to do it. So it'll be about us making sure that we're doing a thorough consultation to ensure that we're, accurately representing the views of the agricultural sector in our area.
So, Mayor, do we actually have to make a statement on it, either for or against? I thought it was there as an opportunity for those who wanted to provide a statement or an opinion, either for or against. Can we elect to do nothing?
Through you, Mayor Phillips, I'll have to confirm, but yeah, I believe we probably can opt to do nothing, but I guess if the state government has advocated and said quite clearly that it's council's responsibility to ensure that their community is represented either way, the responsibility is really on councils to go out and have that conversation rather than electing to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions to Matthew on the general update? No. Okay, if there's not, can I ask that someone moves 10.3.1, that council note the general update? Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That's carried. 11, items from committees and subsidiaries. So the only one that we've got here is minutes and work plan of the audit committee held 21st of April. Is anyone willing to move the recommended motion 11.1.1?
So moved.
Councillor Burdett, seconded by Councillor Norman. All those in favour? That's carried. Item 12, items for noting. 12.1, the annual business plan progress report. So as per previously, it's the traffic light style report providing an update on the key activities. As we enter the last quarter, the report table has been simplified and commentary timelines refer to whether the project will be completed prior to June 30. So Matthew, is there anything specifically you want to raise or take questions?
I'll unmute myself. Through you, Mayor Phillips, we've noted all the key updates in red so that the elected members are aware of the movements in any of those projects, and yeah, happy to take particular questions rather than reciting the whole report.
Good idea. A3, Matthew, the sporting infrastructure walkthrough and inspection scheduled for 11th of May. Did that happen?
Through you, Mayor Phillips. So today is the 12th of May. So the Andy's building, we're back on site today to install the seating into the change rooms. So
okay.
The walkthrough didn't happen because I had time yesterday, but obviously didn't have time today to meet with them. So we'll make a new date once they've completed those works in the next week or two. But it's complete, and it's looking very, very nice. I guess the other thing is with the restrictions easing, and I think the timeline for the state government is currently around June 8 to start permitting indoor gym activities. We'll obviously start to look at whether we can get that handover completed. We've got a few works to complete in terms of the portico, but it's not unforeseeable that the gym could actually move into that new facility in sort of early to mid-June if the restrictions ease.
Mhm. Any questions from elected members? If there are none, do I have someone to move 12.1.1 that we note the annual business plan report for May? Councillor Sparks, seconded by Councillor Zatto. All those in favour? It's carried. Where do we get to? Right, 12.2. Capital Projects Progress Report. Same situation as before. The updates have been included in red. Does anyone want to speak to this?
Just to note quickly, through you, Mayor Phillips, the Carina School pool, we're still waiting on confirmation from the Minister's office on the current status of the pool project, but we believe an announcement around the project is imminent. I'm not sure if that's a positive or a negative announcement, but we've been advised that the process is being concluded and that a media release will be drafted. And the second project there, the bench seating obviously was installed today, as I mentioned, so we're just waiting on final handover for the football club expansion project.
Thank you. Any questions on the capital projects progress report?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Phillips, the Railway Terrace landscaping, Matt or Jared. So the edging's been completed, but the minor tidy up. Is there a costing of that? Has that come in yet or not?
Showing there as well.
Phillips, yeah. So it's completed. The costing of the landscaping terrace was approved by council. I think, what are we now? April, May. At the April, no, it might have been the March meeting. It was about $12,500.
Yep. And that's what it came in at. Or we allocated for it, or?
Yeah, the concreting. That was additional to the original landscaping. So the original landscaping was I think the $25,000 allotment, and then council endorsed an additional $12,500 off the top of my head in March, I believe it was, to install the concrete edging.
Yep.
Yep. So that was a fixed price.
You've just got budget and actual there at 37 and 30. Is that incorporated in that, or is that something that needs updating?
I'll have to defer to Katrina if she doesn't know off the top of her head, and just take that on notice. It's either incorporated into it or it hasn't been added onto it yet.
Yeah.
So the budget amount might not have been varied to include the additional $12,000 that was approved in March.
Through you, Mayor, just a question. Have we heard any more positive date on when we might hear from the BBRF4 for the Pioneer Park project?
Through you, Mayor Phillips. Yeah, so there was some discussion around BBRF at the MRLGA meeting when local member Tony Pazin was talking about various funding updates, and you seem to indicate that within the next 2 to 3 weeks there might be some decisions and announcements being made in relation to BBRF, but at this point we are still in a holding pattern.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? There are none. Can I ask for a mover for 12.2.1 that we note the Capital Works Progress Report for May? Councillor Sparks, seconded by Councillor Norman. All those in favour? It's carried. Too slow, Fred. Moving into 12.2, Youth Action Committee. Hand over to Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor Phillips. Yeah, so just a very quick update, an important update, I think, for council as well. So one of the actions in the annual business plan was to develop a youth action plan, a youth action services plan, and a committee to support the development and then the implementation of that plan. And it had been a project that we were deferring, but then in the weight of projects that we've got coming up in the coming months with a youth focus, it made sense to actually accelerate that process of creating the YAC to actually facilitate the consultation. So very excited to hold the first meeting and for it to be around the playground project and for the 5 inaugural members of the committee. And I think they were all very excited to have the first meeting by Zoom, with the exception of Sean, who was unable to come due to work commitments. And we've got a follow-up meeting next week to start finalising the design process for the playground project. So we will initially start with the playground project, but we will start to verge into broader consultation around youth issues, as well as some feedback around the upgrades to the Institute building. And then the other Drought Community Project is the community music event, which was one of the youth ideas from the feedback we did in the workshops we did in November last year. So they'll be heavily involved in that process as well. So Caroline, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything else. I think it was very, very clear that they all are aspiring young community leaders, and they certainly respond well to our mayor.
Look, I think it was a great session, and we really tried to instill in the members their responsibility around consulting with their peers and bringing the views of their peers back to the committee, that they're representative, and it's their voice that's providing that insight for the youth of the community. So yeah, it was really good. The Zoom worked well, and yeah, I'm keen to see what kind of things came out of the consultation with the playground. There was a lot of kind of worksheets and things that they had to take away and bring back to the designers. So it was a good session, and well done to the team for pulling it together fairly quickly, because it certainly helped us to address that consultation piece with the playground as well, and tick off one of the key items that's been on our business plan for a while.
So the part of the benefit of, I guess, having the YAC in a sense is, starting to get young people involved in community leadership and community projects, but it's also about having a greater reach into youth consultation. So part of their homework assignments on the playground design was to actually facilitate some youth workshops at school, which they did on Friday last week. And I think they had 18 students attend those workshops and start working through designs, and a little bit of incentive from council providing some canteen food to support that process didn't hurt either. So well done, and I think we've got a good bunch. We may call for a further 2 nominations just to expand the group out to 7, just so we've got a broader reach and broader spread, a bit more diversity. But we'll do that in coming months.
Certainly a good age spread too. I can't remember exactly, but kind of a couple of year 7s, year 9. Year 10 and year 11, I think.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Any questions on the YAC, Youth Action Committee? No questions? I have a slight time lag, so if you could no or yes, that's good. Okay, if there are no questions, do I have a move for 12.3.1 that we note the update on the creation of the Youth Action Committee, and that we congratulate each of the members for putting up their hands to work for their community? Moved, Councillor Martin, seconded. Ooh, that jumped then. Who was my seconder? Councillor Smith, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried. 12.4, Mallee Kids Childcare, and again I'll hand over to Matthew for a brief overview of the situation here that's also had a really positive outcome thanks to our staff. You're muted, Matthew.
I know I should ask that. I think I'd be used to this by now. Thank you, Mayor Phillips. Again, just important to note, I guess, the work that we're doing collectively is as administration and council behind the scenes. So early adaptation to the changes or consideration of the changes under the early childhood care package meant that effectively our income had been cut in half at Mallee Kids. And that was going to be a similar situation to a number of childcare providers across the state and indeed the country. And a large part of the reason for that is that the federal government's approach to providing the childcare relief package was based on the fact that many childcare centres were experiencing people removing their children, going into self-isolation and hence a reduced income. So they provided the package to stabilise the fees. They did so in two-prong approach, and the first part of that was what they call the business continuity payment, and then the second part of that was that they were hoping that the childcare providers would then be able to apply for the JobKeeper payments, which would then top up additional income into those businesses to go to the employees. Unfortunately, JobKeeper isn't applicable for local government. So in New South Wales, I think 80% of childcare centres or something to that amount is run by councils. So there was a relief package provided by the state government in New South Wales to co-fund childcare centres in the intervening period. And I guess we pointed out very early on to Tony Pazin, who was very helpful in instigating some discussions with the state government about how the state in South Australia could assist provide funding in the interim to childcare centres in South Australia as well. So in essence, the childhood relief package effectively meant that childcare centres could no longer charge for fees, and they wouldn't get the standard CCS. They would get a single payment, and then they would get top-up payments through JobKeeper. That doesn't apply to us, but through, I guess, the advocacy and the lobbying through Tony Pazin and then back through the Local Government Association, we were then able to secure a commitment from the state government to actually provide funding to all of the council-run facilities in South Australia, which meant that the state government is going to match the funding provided by the federal government. So it still doesn't bridge the full gap, and it still doesn't put the power back into the childcare centres' hands. For example, when we were at capacity of 15 children through that school holiday period, if we were charging fees for that service, we would have, our income for that fortnight would have been around $13,000. Under the current arrangement with the business continuity payments, our income was capped at $2,500. And then that's now going to be matched by the state government, so it would have been capped at $5,000. So we would have still not been reaching our earning capacity for the centre based on the enrolments, but we have managed to stabilise the fees that we were returning earlier in the year, which is what the federal government payments were based on. So, yeah, I think very, very good outcome, and I guess it just shows the impact that we can have not just on our own operations, but across the sector if we're very early to act. And we've got the support of our local members as well. Carolyn, are you muted?
Sorry, yes, I'm muted. And there we go. Sorry about that. Do we have any questions relating to that? Nope. If there's none, can I have a mover for 12.4.1 that we note the update on Mallee Kids and the measures taken by the Mayor and CEO to reduce impacts of early childhood education and care relief package on the short-term viability of the service. Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I can second.
Move Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Sparks. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 12.5, Drought Communities Program. And as you'd be aware and would have seen out and about, a number of the projects have started coming to fruition. There's an update of each of those there. Is there anything you wanted to raise specifically, Matthew?
Just in relation to the project, so they're broken down into 3 key areas. So the community buildings and infrastructure, which are a lot of the minor upgrade works, and some upgrades at the Karoonda Institute. Now we're just finalising some information and some plans around what those changes are going to be, so we can document that and provide that to elected members and also to the community for consultation before we execute. Just in terms of, so everyone's got an opportunity to provide feedback on the plans for the Institute in terms of the internal work and some of the external landscaping work there. So that'll materialise in the next week or two. And we're just waiting on the wastewater designs back for the Karoonda Cemetery, the Wombi Reserve, and also for Pioneer Park. So we can provide those for feedback too in terms of location of the toilet structures and where they'll be sited in those various locations. The third project is the Community Playgrounds project, and that's well underway. So we've received the additional funding, which there's a late report in the agenda, which I've circulated in relation to that. So we received the additional funding from the Places for People grant, which is an additional $300,000, which then enables us to free up approximately $100,000 of DCP from that project to go into other projects. And then we've got the drought, which I think is incorrectly labelled there. We've actually got the drought support initiatives, which at this point are on hold because a large portion of those initiatives are around face-to-face contact with farmers and a range of events and activities which just can't quite happen just yet. And we've already had discussions with Oz Industry about the process for seeking a potential extension of time, given the considerations around COVID-19 restricting us to undertake those activities. So we'll monitor that and we'll make some decisions around when we start within the next 3 to 4 weeks as the conditions start to ease again. Other than that, happy to take questions on those, but just some minor early wins in terms of solar panels while we do some of the more detailed planning around some of the other facilities.
Any questions or comments?
It's through you, Mayor, Councillor Sparks. I'm just wondering whether there's had any feedback from the Wanaka Rec Committee on their hot water system, that they're wanting solar panel instead of a, on-demand gas or electric or whatever.
Yep, through you, Mayor Phillips. So we've received a number of quotes from a number of different providers, and we've had confirmation now. So we provided all the quotes back to the Rec Committee, and they've chosen to go with a solar system. So we'll make adjustments in the project budgets for that. I think it was around $8,500 for the solar system, and we'll raise the purchase order for that shortly and get that underway.
Any other queries? Nope. There are none. Can I have a mover for 12.5.1 that we note the update and progress report?
Moved.
Councillor Bennett, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? That's carried. 13, items for discussion, emergency management policy. Matthew.
Yeah, so this is the product of a project that was initiated through the LGA, and they've initiated a statewide project to develop emergency management policies that are consistent format and content across the 68 councils. So we've been working with Dan Newson from the LGA, initially in conjunction with Southern Valley, and then we've broken off to sort of customise our policy locally. So the policy just embodies at a high level council's commitment and planning around emergency management, and then supporting the policy. There's a number of simplified one-page operations manuals, which we've worked through internally as a leadership team, but really that's around our own preparedness. So, for example, there's a one-pager on storm management. So if we're predicting stormy weather, then we've got a series of checklists that will escalate through in terms of preparation for that. So it's really just about preparedness for emergency management. This is at the policy level. It's largely based on the LGA template that's been developed through that program and has also been considered through the audit committee in recent weeks as well.
So basically, we're looking for council to adopt the emergency management policy. Are there any questions to staff relating to that policy? If there are none, do I have anyone willing to move 13.1.1 that we adopt? Councillor Norman, seconded by Councillor Sparks. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And another policy, 13.2, internal financial control policy. And I'll hand over to Katrina for this one.
So this is the update. It went to the audit committee at the 21st April meeting. So we've just updated it on our template and removed the procedures that were originally attached to the policy. So the policy sets out the roles and responsibilities of council, the audit committee, the CEO, management and employees, and it goes with the elements of the internal control framework, which we are actually audited against as well.
So I've got the policy attached there. Do we have any questions to Katrina?
Yeah, does this count the changes we talked about at the audit committee, Katrina? Because my notes at that audit committee were, we were having trouble with this at the time. So does it incorporate the changes?
Yes, it does. So it incorporated the 5 elements that Tim was speaking about. So they're listed in there, and then expanded on the roles of council, role of the CEO mainly. Yeah.
So Tim and Rex are happy with that, aren't they? Because that was what bogged us down. Yeah.
Yeah, page 71, Yvonne, it shows the elements of an internal financial control framework that I think we were discussing.
Yeah, I just can't remember what it said before, which was something was wrong with it. So yeah,
it didn't have that in there. But
it wasn't strategic enough or something.
Yep. So I think the feedback, the concern from Tim was that it was listing specific controls, but it didn't have all the controls listed there. So unless you're going to provide an exhaustive list of specific controls, then you should be talking about key elements at a strategic level, which is relevant to the policy. So that's what's been incorporated in there based on the feedback from Tim. The other key change on page 71 was the introduction of the line around the responsibility of the CEO to ensure the biannual audit is completed, the internal audit.
Yep. Happy with that, Eva?
Oh yeah, look, I should probably move it then, shouldn't I?
Excellent. Moved. Councillor Smith, seconded. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sparks, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. 13.3, Apex Park, Athol tree removal. I'll hand over to Jared for this one.
Thank you, Mayor Phillips. As you can see from the report, we've had a few requests over the years, just verbally, from the Karoonda Farm Fair, just with regard to removal of the Athol trees, mainly in relation to the needles that are falling in that area and preventing grass or lawn to be able to grow. So they see that section as a key part of their event with regard to the Yard and Dog Championship. So that being a real feature event, and they'd like a nice green area there to sort of kick off the Karoonda Farm Fair in what they see as a really good light. We are sort of, we don't have any knowledge around the significance of the trees. So if there is any local knowledge with regard to any significance of the trees. We'd love to hear back from the elected body regarding that. But in the absence of that, essentially the way we'd look at it is that we would recommend actually removing those trees so we could potentially start growing some lawn there, and also look at the pergola there as well from a structural point of view, and potentially look at some suggestions there around replacement. The initial financial risk would be $2,500 to $3,000, and that's based on the tree that was removed in front of the silos. So that would be the only risk at this stage. Obviously, if we looked at upgrading the pergola, there'd be an additional cost for that, and potentially the site with any planning.
Okay, any questions or insights for Jared on the athol trees?
Have we
Yes.
got any, yes, Mayor Phillips, have we, Jared, have we got any capability to remove those trees ourselves, or was this quote for external sources to come in and remove them?
Thanks, Councillor Norman. Yeah, the quote is for external sources to come in and remove them. I would suggest that we might not have, I guess, the capability to remove them correctly, but I can look into that further and see if that's an option.
Yep.
Councillor Burdett?
Through you, Mayor Phillips, I had a look at that this afternoon, and regardless of whether they're athol trees or not, and I suspect they're not, they can go, they'll make a big mess. But with regard to the building that's there, in my learned opinion, the structure is fine. There's a bit of rust on the seat supports. To me, the issue is whether we like the look of it, because as far as I can see, I can't see any reason why we would remove or upgrade that building, other than if we don't like it. I mean, to me, it's in good condition. But the trees need to go.
Thanks, Councillor Burdett. I'll just make comment that I have actually inspected that pergola, and when I pushed it, it did move. So I think there are some structural issues there that we probably should look into. But I do agree with you as well. The look of it is probably not the best, and maybe with some future planning, there could be some other options there. But I think first and foremost, I'm not certain that the structure is actually 100% sound, but we'll have to look into that a bit further.
Well, just get Simon to push one of the trees over on top of the structure and everything's fixed.
I think there is a memorial stone down there at Apex Park, but I don't think it relates to the pergola thing as such. I don't know whether anyone knows. No.
You mean the memorial?
Sorry, Kevin, I missed that.
Oh, you mean the memorial stone relating to Mr. Phillips?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, I don't know, but that's a long way from the shed.
Is that okay? I wasn't sure whether it was linked or not. That was all.
I don't know whether it's linked, but it's certainly not in close proximity to the shed.
My connection's slowed. How's everyone else going?
Yeah, my connection's a little bit funny as well.
It's come back now. I'm just wondering whether I have other people in my household using the internet.
Netflix is getting a bit of a workover. So I'm just wondering whether we test the chamber with the motion that's there, or whether there's a slight modification to the motion based on Councillor Norman's feedback that Council consider including the removal of the apple trees in the upcoming budget in the most cost-effective but safe means as possible.
Someone want to put something up?
Well, I'll accept, Jared, that we possibly are not in a position to safely, adequately remove them ourselves. Either we haven't got the equipment or the knowledge or the gameness to do it. So I'll accept that. But I just thought it was an opportunity for, $2,500 to $3,000. I think, a little bit of chainsaw work and drag them away would cost way less than half that. But if staff aren't competent and we haven't got the equipment, then happy to go with, get a contractor in.
And I guess it should just be noted that the quotes, the cost provided there was based on the quotes for the 2 trees at the front of the silos, so it could actually be less than that.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, and we could look into that further and see what capacity we've got as well.
Okay, so do we have anyone willing to move those motions?
Yeah, Mayor, there's Councillor Sparks here. I will move those motions as amended there.
Thank you, Councillor Sparks. Did you get that, Emily? Your amendment? Was there an amendment?
Yeah, just the in the most cost efficient.
Okay, right, sorry. Yeah.
Katrina's taking the minutes.
Oh, sorry, Em. No wonder you looked at me a little funny before. Right, sorry. Mover, Councillor Sparks, do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. And I've locked myself out of my agenda. Right. Moving on, 13.4, Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act delegations. Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor Phillips. So these are really procedural motions in relation to delegations. So heading into the 1st of July, there are a number of delegations that need to be put into place so that council can continue to perform its functions under the Planning, Development Infrastructure Act. The first 2 are delegations from council to the CEO, and then further delegations must be made once the CEO appoints council's assessment manager, who's currently David Altman. So David will make his own delegations, which sounds strange under the new act, and the council assessment panel will also make its own delegations. So it's just really the new governance structures being instituted under the new Planning Development Act. And the motions there are quite procedural. So the templates have been again prepared by the LGA with assistance from Normans, and are quite detailed and straightforward. So there's 2 instruments: Planning Instrument A and Planning Instrument B. Instrument A is council delegating its authority as a designated authority. And Instrument B is council delegating its authority as a relevant authority, and they are different roles that council, different roles and responsibilities that council have under the PDI Act 2016, and makes for very exciting reading, I must say.
Excellent. Do we have any questions relating to those? No questions? Can we move them as a block, Matthew?
Yeah. Yep.
Anyone willing to do that 13.4.1 through to 13.4.4? Councillor Zatto. Seconded. Councillor Martin. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now move to 14.1, correspondence, of which we have nil. So then we only need to deal with the late item. Matthew, that's all we've got left.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. So we've circulated correspondence throughout the month as we have been to elected members, but yeah, nothing of note to pull into the agenda. So yeah, so we can deal with the late item if you're willing to accept it into the agenda, Mayor Phillips.
I am. Katrina, do you have that to pull up on the screen? It's just emailed.
If you don't, feel free to stop sharing your screen and I'll bring it up on my screen.
You should have it on email. You've CC'd on it, Katrina.
Can you not see my screen with it on?
No.
No, we can see close of meeting.
So you have to go to a new screen share.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Okay, so late item 13.5, reallocation of Drought Communities Program funding to Corinda Farm Fair project. And I'll just hand over to Matthew just to summarise quickly what this attachment says.
Yep, so thank you, Mayor Phillips. There's two attachments to this late item. One is in relation to the budget for the Community Playgrounds project, which is being funded under the Drought Communities program, which has since received $300,000 of additional funding. And effectively what that means is there's $100,000 that now is freed up within the Drought Communities program as a result of that additional funding coming into the Playgrounds project. Subsequently, at the same time, Council was considering or was asked to consider support for the Corinda Farm Fair exhibition shed as part of the Drought Communities funds, but decided that at the time it wasn't able to squeeze any support in for that. But it did support the Corinda Farm Fair with the grant writing for the application under the Regional Ag Shows Fund. Corinda Farm Fair were advised on Friday last week that they were successful with that application, and they've now received confirmation that they'll receive $93,000 approximately of funding through the Regional Ag Shows, which will complement their own $32,000 contribution for a total of $125,000. The original proposal they put forward in that funding application was for effectively a bare bones shed, 48 metres by 12 metres, with a compacted crusher dust floor that would replace the need for them to hire the large pavilion each year at the farm fair, netting them a saving of around $17,000 per annum each farm fair, which would then pay down their investment in the project. Council now quite timely with the ability to reallocate or consider reallocating funding out of the DCP as an opportunity to effectively support this project, which means it would largely be supported by federal government funding, first through the Ag Shows and then through the Drought Communities funding. And if it were to allocate $95,000 approximately of the Drought Communities funding to this project, it would take the total project funding to around $240,000, with an increase of funding also from Corinda Farm Fair up to $55,000, which means that the product that's delivered will be a high quality product with concrete floor, electrical services throughout, lighting, stormwater management, and we fully fit for purpose. So the two attachments that you have there as well just indicate firstly the playground project and the funding for the playground project, which frees up the additional $100,000. And then the second attachment is a revised budget estimate for the project for the Corinda Farm Fair, considering the potential of council contributions to that project. The financial implications are quite minor in the sense of the funding's already been committed under the DCP. So all we'd be doing is reallocating the funding within the DCP and including a contribution to the Corinda Farm Fair project as part of that. And we would need to go through a variation request with Oz Industry to seek the inclusion of that project in the Drought Communities program. There would be some standard risks that we would look to mitigate in terms of investing in a piece of infrastructure that's not owned by council, similar to the arrangements we had in place with the Corinda Districts Football Club with the club rooms. We would want to ensure that there's an MOU, memorandum of understanding in place that basically ensures that, council doesn't invest and co-fund this facility, and then, Farm Fair has the ability to potentially resell or dispose of that facility at some point in the future. We also want to make sure that if council does commit to contributing to this project, that the facility is available for a range of community uses outside of Farm Fair as well. So I guess in a nutshell, we've managed to free up some funding through the Drought Communities program by offsetting some funding through other sources, and quite timely, the announcement around the Corinda Farm Fair project. We have an opportunity, should we wish to take it, to contribute to that project, and I think create probably a better and more fitting piece of infrastructure for the community. So what's there if council would like to pursue that is a draft resolution with a variety of with a number of conditions in there which would apply just to sort of safeguard the process for council.
Thank you, Matthew. Do we have any questions relating to that late agenda item?
Yes, through you, Mayor Caroline. Are we compliant if we make that decision tonight? Like, have the community had the opportunity to see this agenda item and then lobby me?
I'm not sure if there's an issue of compliance through you, Mayor Phillips, but I think there was discussion around this project from my recollection during the time when council was consulting on Drought Communities projects. But certainly council could go back out to community consultation should they wish to before making any reallocation of funds.
I think it's a good idea, but I don't leave ourselves open to criticism.
Any other questions? Does someone want to test the water to open debate?
Through you, Mayor, I was just going to I would just ask a question to Matthew or CEO. We're confident that that is going to be enough to do the concrete floor and the electrical and the stormwater and everything else. You're confident that that's enough? I'm not sure where we get any more money, but are you confident that that's enough? Because I just feel that if we're going to do this, we might as well do it properly.
Through you, Mayor Phillips. So the quotes that were received by Farm Fair when they were putting the project together, the initial quotes that they received for the concreting the floor was around $80,000. And I believe there was another complete quote for a fit out of for the supply and installation, including the concrete floor, for around $220,000, not including some of the stormwater management systems. So I think we would certainly be within ballpark, but I think a competitive tender/procurement process to ration that down, we should get a really good indication of whether we're in the ballpark. But I'm reasonably comfortable, given the quotes I've seen, that should be adequate to achieve a good outcome.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'm happy to move that.
As printed?
As printed.
Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I'm happy with that.
Seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Burdett. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? I should have asked you if you wanted to, if the seconder wanted to speak to the motion.
No, thank you.
So if there's no one speaking against, do you wish to close debate, of which there was none, Daryl?
Yeah, I'm happy to move forward.
Okay. All those in favour? Can I have a show of hands? Thank you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I've now disabled my iPad. That was the final item on the agenda. So I shall declare the meeting closed at 8:51. Thank you all very much for your contributions.